The morning of October 15th started like any other ordinary Tuesday for the Morrison family. Sam Morrison, a spirited 14-year-old with an infectious laugh, bounced down the stairs two at a time, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. At the kitchen table sat his older brother Jake, methodically eating cereal while sketching intricate patterns in a notebook with his free hand. Jake was 16, 2 years older than Sam, but in many ways, Sam had always been a protective one. Jake had been born with a rare neurological condition called selective mutism, combined with autism spectrum disorder. He had never spoken a single word in his entire life. Not mama, as a baby, not help when he was hurt, not even a whisper when he dreamed at night. But Jake's silence didn't mean he wasn't communicating. His expressive brown eyes could convey more emotion than most people manage with entire speeches. His gentle touches, his careful drawings, and his protective presence spoke volumes to those who took the time to understand his language. And nobody understood Jake better than Sam. "Morning, Jake," Sam said, ruffling his brother's sandy brown hair as he passed. Jake looked up and smiled that warm, genuine smile that could light up any room. He pointed to his notebook, showing Sam an intricate drawing of two figures standing together under a tree. Sam grinned back. "Yeah, we're definitely a team, aren't we?" Their parents, David and Linda Morrison, had learned long ago to include Jake in everything despite his challenges. They had tried countless therapies, visited specialists across the country, and explored every possible treatment. But Jake seemed content in his quiet world, and the family had adapted beautifully around him. Jake attended a special education program at the local high school, where he excelled in art and mathematics. He had a gift for seeing patterns that others missed, and could solve complex puzzles that stumped his teachers. His artwork was extraordinary, detailed landscapes and portraits that seemed to capture the very soul of his subjects. If this story truly touches your heart, let it speak for you. Like this video, subscribe to be part of our journey, and share your feelings in the comments. Sam, meanwhile, was the talker of the family. He was Jake's voice in social situations, his interpreter when others didn't understand, and his fiercest offender when cruel kids made jokes. The brothers were inseparable. Where Sam went, Jake followed, and vice versa. That Tuesday afternoon, Sam came home from soccer practice muddy and exhausted. Jake was in the living room, working on a painting of their family dog, Max, who was curled up beside him serving as a very patient model. "That's incredible, Jake," Sam said, genuinely amazed as always by his brother's talent. "You got Max's expression perfect. Look, he's actually posing for you." Jake beamed with pride and pointed to another canvas he'd started. This one showed Sam mid-kick on the soccer field, captured with photographic accuracy despite Jake having only seen Sam play a few times. "Wait, is that me?" Sam's eyes widened. "Jake, this is amazing. You made me look like a real athlete instead of the disaster I actually am." Their mother, Linda, called from the kitchen that dinner would be ready in an hour. Their father, David, was working late at his accounting firm, which had become more common lately as he struggled to keep up with the medical bills from Jake's ongoing treatments and therapies. Sam headed upstairs to shower and change, while Jake continued painting. The house settled into its comfortable evening rhythm. Linda preparing dinner while listening to the news, Max snoring contentedly by Jake's feet, and the distant sound of Sam's terrible singing echoing from the bathroom. But peace can shatter in an instant. It started with a small electrical spark in the basement. An old outlet that David had been meaning to replace finally gave out, sending a shower of sparks onto some stored newspapers and cardboard boxes. The dry autumn air and accumulated dust created perfect kindling. Linda was the first to notice something was wrong when she smelled smoke wafting up from the basement. She called out for the boys while heading downstairs to investigate, not yet realizing the danger they were all in. "Sam, Jake, I smell smoke," she yelled, but her voice was lost in the sound of Sam's shower and Jake's intense concentration on his painting. By the time Linda reached the basement and saw the flames beginning to spread along the far wall, panic set in. She raced back upstairs, shouting for her sons while grabbing her phone to call 911. 911, what's your emergency? "My house is on fire. We need help immediately. 1247 Maple Street. Ma'am, we're dispatching fire trucks now." Are you and your family out of the house? No. My sons are still upstairs. I need to get them. The smoke was beginning to fill the lower level of the house now, creeping up through the vents and under doors. Linda ran upstairs, pounding on the bathroom door. Sam, get out now. The house is on fire. Sam shut off the water immediately, grabbing a towel as he rushed out of the bathroom. What? Fire? Where's Jake? Downstairs painting. Get him and get out. I'll grab our important documents. But when Sam reached the living room, his heart sank. The smoke was already thick enough that Jake hadn't noticed it yet, still absorbed his artwork. And worse, Sam could see orange light flickering at the bottom of the stairs leading to the basement. Jake, we have to go. Now. Sam shook his brother's shoulder urgently. Jake looked up, confused by Sam's panic. Then his eyes widened as he saw the smoke beginning to pour into the living room. He stood immediately, but instead of heading for the door, he pointed frantically toward the stairs. It took Sam a moment to understand what Jake was trying to communicate. Then he heard it, their mother's voice calling for help from upstairs, but it sounded weak, muffled. Mom. Sam called back, but there was no response. Jake grabbed Sam's arm and pointed upstairs again, his eyes filled with urgency. He had heard something Sam missed. Their mother had fallen while trying to gather documents from their parents' bedroom. The smoke was thicker upstairs, and she was struggling to breathe. We have to get her, Sam said, understanding Jake's desperate gestures. The brothers ran upstairs together, but the smoke was much thicker here. Sam pulled his shirt up over his nose and mouth, squinting through the gray haze. They found their mother on the floor of her bedroom, conscious but coughing violently. Mom, can you walk? Sam asked, helping her sit up. Linda nodded weakly, but when she tried to stand, her legs buckled. The smoke inhalation had already affected her more than she realized. Sam looked around desperately. He could hear sirens in the distance, but they weren't close enough. The fire was spreading fast, and he could see orange light beginning to flicker at the bottom of the main staircase now, too. Jake, help me get her up, Sam said, moving to support their mother's weight. But as they lifted Linda between them, Sam realized with growing horror that she was heavier than he'd expected, and Jake, despite being older, had always been slight in build due to his various medical conditions. The stairs seemed impossibly long and steep, and the smoke was getting thicker by the minute. They made it halfway down the main staircase when Linda collapsed again, this time unconscious from smoke inhalation. Sam tried to lift her alone, but she was dead weight now, and he simply wasn't strong enough. Jake, I can't. Sam's voice cracked with desperation and fear. Tears were streaming down his face as he realized they might not make it out. The fire had spread to block their path to the front door, and the back door was on the other side of the flames. Jake stood frozen for a moment, his eyes wide with terror as he processed what was happening. His mother was unconscious. His little brother was crying. The house was burning around them, and there was no one coming to help them in time. In that moment, something extraordinary happened in Jake's brain. The same neurological pathways that had been blocked his entire life suddenly found a way through. Every ounce of love he felt for his family, every protective instinct he'd never been able to voice, every desperate need to save the two people who meant everything to him. It all converged into a single, impossible moment. Jake Morrison spoke his first words. Help me carry her. Sam's head snapped up in shock. The voice was rough and used, barely above a whisper, but it was unmistakably his brother's voice. Jake! Sam stared in disbelief. Did you just... Please, Jake said, the word coming out stronger this time. Help me? There was no time to process the miracle. Sam nodded, wiping his eyes, and together they lifted their mother. Jake's newfound voice seemed to have unlocked something else too, a strength and determination he'd never shown before. This way, Jake said, pointing toward the kitchen window. Window. They carried Linda toward the back of the house, Jake continuing to speak in short, urgent phrases. Careful. Step here. Almost there. Sam had never heard anything more beautiful than his brother's voice guiding him to safety. Even rough and unpracticed, even in the midst of disaster. It was the most wonderful sound in the world. They reached the kitchen window. Jake fumbled with the latch, while Sam supported their mother's full weight. "Got it," Jake said as the window swung open. The fresh air rushed in, and Linda stirred slightly. Sam helped her out the window first, then climbed through himself. Jake followed, and all three collapsed on the grass of their backyard just as the fire trucks rounded the corner onto their street. The paramedics took over immediately, giving Linda oxygen while checking Sam and Jake for injuries. The boys sat together on the back of an ambulance, both covered in soot but miraculously unharmed. "Jake," Sam said quietly, still in shock, "you saved us. You saved Mom." Jake looked at his younger brother, and for the first time in 16 years, he had words to express what he was feeling. "I couldn't lose you," he said, his voice getting stronger with each word. "Love you too much." Sam began to cry again, but this time there were tears of joy and relief. "I love you too, Jake. I always knew you had so much to say." The fire chief approached them as the firefighters worked to contain the blaze. Most of the house would be saved, though the basement and part of the first floor were destroyed. "You boys are heroes," the chief said. "What you did in there, getting your mother out, that took incredible courage and teamwork." Jake looked up at the man and spoke clearly. "Sam is brave. I just found my voice." Over the next several weeks, as the family stayed in a hotel while their house was repaired, Jake's vocabulary expanded rapidly. It was as though 16 years of stored-up words were finally finding their way out. He told Sam about all the times he wanted to thank him for being his protector and translator. He told their parents how much their patience and love had meant to him all these years. He described the colors he saw in his paintings and the emotions he tried to capture in his art. But most importantly, Jake talked about what had happened that day in the fire. "I always heard everything," he explained to a doctor who was studying his case. "I understood everything. I just couldn't make the words come out. But when Sam needed me, when Mom needed me, it was like something broke open in my head. I had to speak. I had to help them." The medical team was fascinated by Jake's breakthrough. His case would go on to be studied by neurologists around the world, offering new hope for other families dealing with selective mutism and related conditions. But for the Morrison family, the medical implications were secondary to the personal miracle they'd experienced. Sam went back to school and told everyone about his amazing brother who'd found his voice to save their family. Jake enrolled in regular classes for the first time, still receiving support for his autism, but now able to advocate for himself. Their father, David, reduced his working hours to spend more time with his family, realizing that no amount of money was worth missing these precious moments with his sons. And their mother, Linda, recovered completely, though she never forgot the sound of Jake's first words calling for help in their darkest moment. 6 months later, Jake gave his first public speech at a fundraiser for families affected by house fires. His voice was strong and clear as he spoke about the power of love to overcome any obstacle. "If you made it all the way here, it means this story truly held you. So don't leave without showing some love. Hit like, subscribe to stay with us, and drop a comment. I'll be here, reading every word you share." "For 16 years, I lived in silence," he told the audience. "But I was never really silent. Love was always there, waiting for the right moment to find its voice. Sometimes it takes a crisis to show us what we're really capable of. Sometimes we have to face our greatest fears to discover our greatest strengths." He paused and looked out at Sam, who was sitting in the front row with tears of pride in his eyes. "My little brother spent years being my voice," Jake continued. "He spoke for me when I couldn't speak for myself. He protected me when I felt vulnerable. He loved me when the world seemed confusing and scary. And when the moment came when I finally found my own voice, I used it to protect him back. That's what family does. We find our strength in each other." The audience gave Jake a standing ovation, but he only had eyes for his family. His parents were crying with joy, and Sam was grinning that same infectious grin that had brightened Jake's silent world for so many years. After the speech, the brothers walked home together under the stars. Jake, now comfortable with conversation, chattered about his plans for the future, college, art school, maybe becoming a teacher to help other kids like himself. But as they reached their rebuilt house, Sam stopped walking and turned to his brother. "Jake, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever miss the quiet? I mean, you live in silence for so long. Do you ever wish you could go back to that peaceful place?" Jake considered the question seriously before answering. "Sometimes I do miss the simplicity of quiet," he said. "There was something beautiful about experiencing the world through colors and feelings and touches instead of words. But Sam," he put his hand on his younger brother's shoulder, "I wouldn't trade having a voice for anything. Not because talking is better than silence, but because now I can tell you every day how much you mean to me. I can say, thank you when you help me. I can say, I love you whenever I want. And if you ever need me to speak up for you the way you spoke up for me all those years, now I can." Sam smiled and hugged his brother. "You know what's funny? You're actually making me cry more now that you can talk than you ever did when you were quiet." Jake laughed, another sound that was still new and wonderful to his family's ears. "Well, get used to it," he said. "I have 16 years of words to catch up on." As they walked into their house together, Jake's artwork still decorated the walls, those beautiful, silent expressions of love and observation that had been his voice for so many years. But now they were accompanied by something new. Jake spoke in words, sharing stories about each piece, explaining the emotions he'd captured, and planning new projects with enthusiasm and joy. The fire had taken some of their possessions, but it had given him something infinitely more valuable. It had given Jake his voice, shown Sam that he was just as much a protector as he was protected, and reminded their entire family that love really could overcome any obstacle. That night, as the brothers said goodnight, Jake spoke the words he'd been unable to say for 16 years, but had felt every single day. "Thank you, Sam, for being my voice when I couldn't find my own, for never giving up on me, for loving me exactly as I was, while still believing I could become more. You saved me long before I ever saved you." And Sam, who had spent years speaking for both of them, found that sometimes the most powerful response was simply the quiet smile of understanding, the same silent language that had connected them from the very beginning. The Morrison brothers had learned that love speaks in many languages, sometimes in words, sometimes in silence, sometimes in desperate moments when everything depends on finding your voice. But always in the unwavering commitment to stand by each other, no matter what challenges life might bring. Their story became a reminder that miracles don't always announce themselves with fanfare. Sometimes they whisper in a hoarse and used voice in a smoke-filled hallway. Sometimes they come disguised as tragedy that reveals unexpected strength. And sometimes they sound exactly like a brother saying your name when you need to hear it most. Jake Morrison found his voice the day his family needed him most. But the truth was, he had been speaking all along, in every protective gesture, every shared smile, every piece of art that captured the love he couldn't put into words. The fire didn't give Jake his voice. It simply gave him permission to use the one he'd always had. And in the years that followed, whenever anyone asked Jake about that miraculous day when he spoke his first words, he would always give the same answer. "I didn't find my voice to save my family. I found my voice because my family had already saved me.